Hello, superheroes and supervillains. It's your friend Sean PVS 101, and welcome back to a brand new video on my YouTube channel. And today's brand new video on my YouTube channel is going to be very interesting to make. When I was on my phone scrolling some movie news or some film news, what's going on Twitter or X, I was scrolling some news related to movie medias on my app called X. I was scrolling something what's new to announce, but then when I scroll up on discussion films, when they announce Universal and Illumination Entertainment is making a third Minions movie. That's right, people. Universal Pictures and Illumination Entertainment has been announced. They're making a Minions 3. Will release this movie 3 years later on June 30th, 2027. When I find out Universal and Illumination are making a third Minions movie called Minions 3, I was both excited and a little hesitant at first. Well, don't get me wrong, guys, I'm not one of those people on the internet when they announce they see a Minions 3, they go like, why they're making a Minions 3? I'm gonna crow myself. No, I'm not one of those people. As for me, I'm actually a fan of the Despicable Me movies. As many people are following me on my YouTube channel or on social media platforms, I'm actually a major fan of the Despicable Me franchise. Personally, I really love all of these movies because I'm actually a fan of these movies for the past several years because I'm actually a major Despicable Me fan, in my opinion. Why? Because I personally love all of these movies. That's right, my fellow superheroes and supervillains. I love all the Despicable Me movies because I'm a major fan of this franchise when I was growing up in the 2010 decade. I love all the movies in general. Not all of them, but I still like all of them. I like all the Despicable Me movies, in my opinion. Because the first Despicable Me movie, Despicable Me, that came out in the year 2010, that movie was fantastic. I adore the first Despicable Me movie when it came out in 2010. That movie is a certified classic. I adore that movie. For my thoughts on the second movie, Despicable Me 2, I still really adore that movie. That sequel was fantastic. Easily one of the best ones of the franchise and the best ones of the Despicable sequels and the best one from Illumination Entertainment, along with the first one, Minions Rise of Gru, and the Super Mario Bros. Movie as Illumination's best work ever. As for my thoughts on the third movie, Despicable Me 3, well, I still really like that movie, but unfortunately is the weakest one of the Despicable franchise. But it's not a terrible movie. I personally really like and enjoy Despicable Me 3 for what it is. Sure, it's not the best one of the franchise because I find the story in side plots could be a little bit messy, but other than that, I still enjoy Despicable Me 3 for what it is. I still really enjoy the animation, characters, and visuals. And also, for my thoughts on the new recent one, the franchise, Despicable Me 4, personally, I don't find this movie not that bad, in my opinion. I really like that movie a lot. It's still not as good as the first or second movie, but I still enjoy Despicable Me 4 for what it is. And also for my opinion on the Minions spin-off movies, which is the spin-off movies / prequel to the Despicable Me franchise. I personally really enjoy the Minions movies for what it is, because the first Minions movie came out in the year 2015. While not the best one, the franchise, I find this one to be the weakest one, but I still really enjoyed the first Minions movie for what it is. I find that movie to be a guilty pleasure good time. And for my thoughts on its follow-up movie, As for my opinion on that follow-up film, Minions: The Rise of Gru, wow, I really love that one. Easily a major step up compared to the first Minions movie because I really enjoyed that movie a lot. I love the 70s setting for this movie. I love when they add a young Gru to the movie to make things better because that movie was a lot of fun. So yeah, I personally really enjoyed and love all the Despicable Me movies because I really like them all because they're very fun, creative, and very exciting movies to watch as a fan of these movies. When I watch a Despicable Me movie project, when I was feeling very a little uncomfortable, what's going on around the world and society, I just want to watch a Despicable Me movie to have a wonderful and great time to let out of my escapism for this franchise. So yeah, when Universal and Illumination announced they're making the Minions 3, as a fan, I was both excited and a little hesitant at first because I'm still excited for Minions 3, but I was a little hesitant at the same time because of a little franchise fatigue, because you know what I mean. But I'm not acting dreading for a Minions 3, but I'm still have my excitement, but I have my little doubts at first because as later on, I have more of my optimistic side because I still a major fan of the franchise because I still have my optimistic side because I was just trying to keep an eye on for Minions 3 because as later on go by, I was making some ideas and some predictions. Was this new third Minions movie is going to be about? But I have a piece of paper right now for this video. I was writing some things down on a piece of paper. What's the story and predictions for this upcoming Minions 3 will be about, and this movie is going to release in June 30th, 2027. Because I was writing some lists down about what's the story and details what this new upcoming movie will be about. Because I love to make this video for fun, to make things more interesting. So yeah, here are my top 5 interesting ideas for Minions 3. That's right, here are my interesting ideas for a potential Minions 3 in 2027. But before I start my top 5 video for this interesting video, these are just my opinions and my predictions for this video. So if you kind of disagree with me, or if you're not looking for another Minions movie, that's perfectly fine. I can totally see your opinions where you're coming from, because while I'm not fully hyped for Minions 3, but I'm still remain optimistic for upcoming Minions 3 in 2027, because I'm still a fan of the Despicable Me franchise, but I just like to make this video for fun, to make things interesting, to see what's the story or details for this new upcoming movie. So yeah, I hope you really enjoyed this video. Give me a like and subscribe, and let's begin my top 5 interesting ideas for Minions 3. And here we go! Right at my number 5 spot, I will love this movie will set in the 1980s, like 1983. Ooh, I'm at number 5 spot. I would love to see Minions 3 will set in the 1980s, like in the year 1983. So yeah, when it comes to the Minions spin-off movies / prequel series to the Despicable Me movies, the Minions, the settings of the Minions movies, because they set in the past, because we focus on the prequel series of the Despicable Me movies, because we focus on Minions, The Rise of Gru, because these are the prequel eras of Despicable Me, because we focus on the series set in the past before the main events of the modern era, because we focus on some pretty interesting settings for the series. Like In the first Minions movie, it's set in the year 1968, aka my mom Gina was born. So yeah, anyways, the first Minions movie set in the 1960s, like in 1968. In the second Minions movie, Minions: The Rise of Gru, set in the 1970s, like in 1976, when we focus on a younger Gru who wants to become a supervillain, who works for the Minions, and try to take down the Vicious Six. So yeah, pretty simple setting, but for Minions 3, right now, we're gonna set in the 1980s. That's right, Minions 3 is going to set in the 1980s because this movie will set in the year 1983, because right now this whole movie is gonna have a lot of 80s throwbacks, because this movie is gonna have some 80s pop culture references. We're gonna have some like 80s moments throughout Minions 3, and we're gonna have some like 80s licensed music a lot throughout Minions 3, because this whole movie is gonna be an 80s movie, because like with the X-Men movies, because both the X-Men Origins prequel series and the Minions spin-off movies / prequel films have some pretty interesting similarities, because both of the first ones set in the 60s, the second one set in the 70s, and for the third ones set in the 1980s, because the whole movie is gonna have a lot of 80s throwbacks, because we gonna might have some interesting throwbacks throughout the movie, like have a very interesting cameo of a young Balthazar Brat. I would love to see a little cameo of Balthazar Brat in Despicable Me 3. Not an actual character cameo, but like in a little appearance, like during some scene from Minions 3, like in little scene moments. We see some characters watching a TV show of Evil Brat, and we focus on some characters, where some random character is watching a show called Evil Brat, and we see some characters from the third Minions movie was watching Evil Brat, and we see young Balthazar Brat in his heydays, and he said his iconic line, "I've been a bad boy." That, I would love to see that cameo for Minions 3, because like in Minions: The Rise of Gru, we went to VillainCon, we went to the Bank of Evil in Minions: The Rise of Gru with Wild Knuckles and Gru, and we see young Mr. Perkins, and show him a picture of him and Vector throughout that scene in Minions 2. But I would love to see that moment again, like when we see some of the characters are watching an Evil Brat show during a little quick cameo. That, I would like to see that, because this movie is going to release, Minions 3 might going to release on June 30th, 2027, the 10th anniversary of the third movie. That would be a pretty interesting, solid release for its 10th anniversary. So yeah, I would love to see Minions 3 will set in the 1980s, like in 1983. That would be pretty interesting and very solid setting for this third one, because a Minions 3 set in the 1980s will make a lot of money at the box office when this movie is coming out on June 30th, 2027. Mark your calendars in the future. So yeah, I would love to see Minions 3 will set in the 1980s, because that would be a pretty creative choice for Illumination to set that era, to make a lot of money for the box office for this film. Alright, number 4. I would love to see Minions 3 will set in the year 1983. We focus on Gru, the Minions, and Dr. Nefario go to this like super villain like summer camp in the year 1983, while Gru is still rising up for his villain days. After the events of Minions: The Rise of Gru, we focus on a teenage Gru who still is a villain to this day, go to this like super villain like camp, and just doing some villain stuff in this camp. and still wants to become the greatest supervillain of the year. And before go to Lycée Pambon. So yeah, I would love to see Minions 3 go to this like supervillain like summer camp. That would be pretty a lot of fun. We see Gru, and the Minions are going to this like supervillain themed summer camp. We see Gru is feeling a little confused what the summer camp is all about, and hopefully we see some cameo appearances throughout this supervillain like themed camp. We will see moments when Gru is meeting Maxime Le Mal. That's right. We see some moments in Minions 3 when Gru is trying to be friends with a young Maxime Le Mal. Yep, the main villain from Despicable Me 4 is acting like a young, wholesome friend to Gru before they become hateful enemies as adults during the 4th movie. So yeah, I would love to see some nice moments of Maxime Le Mal acting nice and very friendly to young Gru, like similar to Randall in Monsters University. Like we see a young, wholesome Randolph before he was acting very evil and vicious in the actual Monsters Inc. movie. Maybe they might do the exact same thing for Maxime Le Mal. Take this like Randall from Monsters University, put into Maxime Le Mal as a nice, wholesome, friendly summer camp guy. That would be pretty interesting because we focus on Maxime Le Mal's childhood obsession with cockroaches. Maybe I'd love to see some moments when Maxime Le Mal goes to this like some wilderness moments and discovers some cockroaches because of like he obsessed with cockroaches when he's a kid. Pretty ironic. So yeah, I would love to see this like Minions 3 will set in the 1980s era, like this like summer camp like supervillain, because of the main plot of the movie is Gru is going to this supervillain camp themed villain called Camp Evil, because of Gru wants to go to the summer camp full of supervillains because of like we see some supervillain kids who wants to become the world's greatest supervillains, and then Gru wants to join the fun for the competition, and then we saw this like villain like theme host of the camp who was trying to like make villains have a very evilish summer because of there's the evil empires going on throughout the year 1983, and focus on the summer camp kids are like acting all want to become like bad guys. They want to become the villain of the year. And then Gru wants to get that trophy. So yeah, that I would love to see that moment for Minions 3, where we see Gru is still rising up for his villain days. That I would love to see that direction for Minions 3. That'll be pretty a lot of fun. So yeah, I hope we have some nice, interesting new Minion shenanigans throughout Minions 3, while Gru is still in this summer camp era for Minions 3. We see some funny Minion shenanigans. We see the Minions are hiking in the woods, and then the Minions accidentally knock into some wilderness stuff. That would be pretty funny for Minions 3. So yeah, I would love to see some supervillain campers in this movie. Like we see this host of this summer camp who is acting like this evilish and very snarky about it. That would be pretty intimidating villain. Like we see this like super villain host summer campers for Minions 3, like this female leader of this group. That would be pretty interesting and very creative. I'm not gonna name the character, but the movie's not come out yet until 3 years later, but I'm just making predictions and theories. So yeah, I would love to see this Minions 3 will set in the 1980s, like for a summer camp themed villain. So yeah, that I would love to see for Minions 3. Summer Camp of Villainy. Alright, number 3. More Dr. Nefario and Gru moments. My number 3, more Dr. Nefario and young Gru moments. Because in Minions The Rise of Gru, we finally see some moments of Dr. Nefario meeting young Gru during some moments of the first Minions movie and the second Minions movie, Minions: The Rise of Gru. We see young Gru is meeting Dr. Nefario twice in those movies, like during VillainCon, during the scene quick cameo of VillainCon, and moments in Minions: The Rise of Gru at a record store. I just love to see more. I want more young Dr. Nefario and young Gru bonding moments as little like partners throughout the third Minions movie, like when Gru is at a supervillain like themed camp full of young supervillain campers, and we see Dr. Nefario as his backup, trying to like trying to give him to his like new contraptions for his inventions, and trying to like get revenge on them using his little shenanigans. So yeah, I love to see more young Dr. Nefario and young Gru throughout the movie. Hopefully we see Dr. Nefario got a lot more to do throughout Minions 3 than he was in Minions 1 and 2. That I would love to see that moment in Minions 3 because of the new actor who voiced Dr. Nefario, who appears in the end of Despicable Me 4, because of, unfortunately, Russell Brand has been recasted throughout the movie because of, I'm not going to tell what happened to Russell Brand because of, I don't want to talk about politics, but Russell Brand did not return in the fourth Despicable Me movie because he been recast. So yeah, I love to see moments of young Dr. Nefario got a lot more to do in helping young Gru throughout Minions 3 during this like evil like supervillain camp. That I love to see more of that throughout the movie, in my opinion. Also, more little fun Minions moments, like more Kevin, Stuart, and Bob. That would be pretty awesome. Number 2, more young Gru villain days, but as a teenager. At my number 2, I want more younger Gru, more supervillain moments, but as a teenager. So yeah, I would love to see more young Gru moments when he becomes more of a supervillain in this movie. Like, we focus more on Gru's villainy moments in this movie because I want to see more young Gru as supervillain moments for this movie, because I love a young Gru in the Minions prequel movies, because young Gru's got to be my favorite character of the whole movie series, especially in Minions: The Rise of Gru. He's got to be my favorite character of the whole movie because Steve Carell as this young kid Gru character was pretty entertaining. I love young Gru. He's got to be my favorite character from the prequel series. How fantastic this character is. I just love his look of him when Gru has hair, because of who this guy reminds me of. Me. So yeah, I love young Gru in the prequel Minions movies because of, I kind of like younger Gru a lot more than older Gru, but I still love both. But young Gru is so lovable and iconic for me. So yeah, he's the best part in the first Minions movie when he appears at VillainCon in the end of the movie, and appears a lot in Minions: The Rise of Gru, which he stole the show in my opinion. He's got to be my favorite character throughout the movie. How very adorable and despicable at the same time can be. And Steve Carell, who voiced a younger Gru, did a phenomenal job voicing him, along with when he voiced adult Gru from the main Despicable Me movies. But I would love to see more younger Gru doing a lot of supervillain shenanigans for Minions 3, because we saw some younger Gru moments doing some villain moments in Minions: The Rise of Gru during when Kevin, Stuart, and Bob pick up Gru from school, and they go to the movie theaters to see Jaws, and they go to the arcade to do some fun shenanigans, and young Gru's doing the iconic using his gun to like spray those people in this ice cream shop. Reminds me of that coffee shop from the first Despicable Me movie as a throwback. But I would love to see more younger Gru moments as still in his villain days, but as a teenager. Like, we see young Gru at 12 years old in Minions 1 and Minions 2. But maybe, in my opinion, this movie set in the 1980s. Like, in 1983, this movie like set in 8 years later. Like, he might be probably 16 or 17, because I think, in my opinion, a teenage Gru will set in the 1980s, like in the early 1980s, as a teenager, like at like 16 years old. That would be pretty interesting. I love to see a teenage Gru will set in the 80s, still from his supervillain days and still doing some lot of villainy moments. I love to see a teenage Gru for this movie, because I love young Gru a lot throughout some Despicable Me movies and some Minion series. I want to see a teenage Gru, like a 16-year-old and 18-year-old. That would be pretty creative, in my opinion. So yeah, I want to see more younger Gru moments, more villain moments, but as a teenager. So yeah, that would be a lot of fun to see a teenage Gru when he grows older, more as a supervillain. And during his high school days, that would be pretty awesome. Alright, number 1. I would love to see a follow-up to Minions: The Rise of Gru, when the third movie is going to title called Minions 3: The Dawn of Gru. Yep, at my number 1, I would love to see the title of Minions 3. Well, this movie is called Minions 3: The Dawn of Gru. Yep, Minions, for my opinion, for my predictions / theory, I'm gonna call Minions 3 called Minions: The Dawn of Gru. Why? Because of right now we're in the dawn of age when we see Gru is still in his villain days, because of we see Gru in his teenage era, in his teenage age in the 1980s, like in 1981 or 1983, when he is still rising up as a supervillain throughout the movie. And then Gru and young Gru, a teenage Gru, is going to this supervillain themed camp hosted by this evil 1980s femme fatale host camper throughout Minions 3, when young supervillain campers that go there, and then doing all evil shenanigans when Gru is trying to join the game and trying to become the greatest camper in this era to win some competitions, some evil camper villain competitions. We see some moments of Minions like Kevin, Stuart, and Bob trying to help Gru out, and the other Minions doing some shenanigans, and more Dr. Nefario helping Gru out throughout the camp to become more evilish, and this evil camper is up to no good. So yeah, I would love to see more. I would love to see the whole movie like that, because that would be a pretty solid follow-up to Minions: The Rise of Gru, because of The Rise of Gru is a pretty great movie in my opinion. Better than Minions 1, but maybe Minions 3 could be a solid follow-up, because we focus some supervillain stuff go to the summer camp set in the 80s, more teenage Gru moments, more little Kevin, Stuart, and Bob moments when they're trying to help Gru out, more Dr. Nefario, and add a pretty interesting new female villain, like a 1980s themed villain. That would be pretty awesome. So yeah, I would love to see moments of that for a potential Minions 3 in 2027 called Minions: The Dawn of Gru. That will be a pretty interesting movie for a title for this next movie. It is going to release on June 30th, 2027, in 3 years later. There you have it, people. Those are my predictions / theories, and also for my ideas for Minions 3 in 2027. So yeah, well, that's for my video. I hope you liked this video. Give me a like, subscribe to my channel, comment down below, look at this video, did you like it or dislike it? Share your opinions, comments down below, and share me your Minions 3 ideas for this video. Share your comments down below. I could be very interesting for it. So yeah, get totally despicable.